Because I spent 10 years, an entire decade, waiting to be enough before I stepped fully into something that God was calling me to do. But the truth is that I wasn't waiting to be qualified. I was waiting to be impressive. And you know what I learned? God doesn't bless your need to look impressive. What if I'm not enough? What if I mess up? What if I'm not qualified enough? Prepared enough? Anointed enough? That's the whisper that keeps a lot of believers stuck. God has given you a dream, a vision, an idea, or a goal that has been collecting dust for months, maybe even years. You know that you should be further along by now. But every time you think about starting, your mind floods with what if I fail? What if I'll never be good enough? What will people say? So you tell yourself that you need one more certification, one more confirmation, one more sign before you can move ahead. Or maybe you're watching everyone else launch their ministries, their businesses, their callings, while you're still seeking God about the same thing that He already spoke about 2 years ago. Maybe you're almost 30, or you're 40, or over 50, and you haven't become the world changer that you thought that God called you to be. You're not walking in the fullness of your purpose, and you're starting to wonder, maybe you heard Him wrong. Maybe the calling is not for you. So you keep planning, you keep preparing, keep waiting for the day when you finally feel worthy to be seen. Let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do things well. God calls us to excellence. He calls us to count the cost. He calls us to be good stewards, to seek wisdom. And there are seasons when you need to prepare, to learn, and to develop the gifts before you go public. So the problem isn't wanting to be good at what you do. The problem is when you can't move forward because you are terrified of what people will think. When you can't take a step forward without knowing that you will look competent in the eyes of people that know nothing about what God has called you to do, without assurance that people will be impressed, without the guarantee that you won't be judged, criticized, or rejected. When you are more focused on managing people's perception of you than actually stewarding what God has called you to do, when the thought of looking foolish, unprepared, or less than is scarier than the thought of never obeying at all, that's the problem. And I get it, because I spent 10 years, an entire decade, waiting to be enough before I stepped fully into something that God was calling me to do. Even though He never said I needed to get one, I somehow convinced myself that I needed to get a PhD to do what He was calling me to do. But the truth is that I wasn't waiting to be qualified. I was waiting to be impressive. I was terrified that if I showed up as I was, people would see through me. That they think, who does she think she is? She's not that special. She doesn't have anything unique to offer. But God began to break the spirit of perfectionism off of me, bit by bit. He told me to create and teach a 9-week course for single Christian women with absolutely nothing prepared in advance. No perfect slides, no perfect videos, no rehearsed content. Just me, showing up imperfectly week after week. And you know what I learned? God doesn't bless your need to look impressive. He blesses your willingness to be faithful with what you already have in your hand. We live in a time where the pressure to appear put together, even as believers, is at an all-time high. Everywhere you scroll, someone is announcing their book deal, their sold-out workshop, their 7-figure launch. We've normalized polished perfection. We celebrate people who look like they have it all together. And somewhere along the line, we started believing that that's what God requires too. That you need to look anointed before you can be used. That you have to appear successful before you are worthy to be seen. That your calling only counts if other people validate it with their approval, their follows, and their applause. So you keep waiting to look ready, waiting to feel impressive, waiting for some external sign that you are finally enough. That waiting isn't wisdom, it's fear. But listen, you're not alone in feeling this way. The truth is everyone, yes, even that person whose ministry looks flawless, at one point in time has wrestled with the fear of not being enough. Moses said, "Who am I that I should go?" Gideon was literally hiding when God called him mighty. Jeremiah said, "I'm too young." Everyone questions whether they are worthy. Everyone wonders if they'll be exposed as a fraud. So the difference isn't whether you feel inadequate. It's in what you do with that feeling. Do you let it paralyze you, or do you obey anyway? Nobody has it all figured out. The fact that you're a human means that you always feel that there is more that you should know, more that you should have done, more that you should be before you are ready. That's not a sign that you are disqualified. It's just what it feels like to be human. But God is not looking for impressive. He's looking for available and obedient. He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And He does it through your obedience, not your credentials. Your job isn't to prove your worth before you move. Your job is to steward what He gave you, even if it feels small, even if it feels messy, even if people don't applaud, which is exactly why I created the 5-day Goal Accelerator Bootcamp. Because God showed me how incredibly gifted, genuinely called believers are still stuck. Not because they lack a word or an instruction from God, but because they are terrified of what people will think when they actually move on God's instruction. When you stop seeking validation from other people's opinions and start anchoring in God's assignment, everything shifts. You can move forward even when people don't understand or approve of your calling. You can start before you feel ready, because God's approval is the only approval that you need. So stop comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. You can be honest about what you don't know without feeling like a fraud. You're able to steward your assignment faithfully without needing constant affirmation from random strangers that you are doing it right. When you are grounded in God's yes, you look to Him first, before the metrics, before the comments, before the external proof that you matter. So how exactly do you break free? First, you have to get honest about what you are really afraid of. Because if we're telling the truth, it's not really about being unqualified. It's about being seen as being unqualified. It's not really about failure. It's about public failure. It's not about making mistakes. It's about people witnessing those mistakes and thinking less of you. So you're not really afraid to be imperfect. You're afraid of being judged for your imperfection. So ask yourself, if no one ever found out that you tried something, would you still be afraid to start? If the answer is no, if you would move forward easily, as long as no one was watching, as long as no one knew, then your issue isn't readiness, it's reputation. So you're not really waiting on God. You're waiting on people's approval. And I need you to hear this. People's approval is not the green light for your obedience. In the Goal Accelerator Bootcamp, you will get brutally honest about what's really keeping you stuck, because you can't break free from a prison that you won't admit that you're in. Next, you need to stop letting other people determine your value. Every time you post something hoping for validation, you're saying, tell me that I matter. Every time that you over-explain your qualifications, you're saying, please don't think less of me. Every time you delay because you think you are not impressive enough yet, you're saying that your worth is determined by how you appear to others. And I get it. We all want to be respected. We all want to be taken seriously. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you need it, when you can't function without it, when your sense of identity rises and falls based on whether people validate you, that's when it becomes a cage. But your freedom is in the fact that your value was established long before you ever did anything. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are chosen. You are already called. You are already loved. Not because of what you produce, but because of whose you are. God didn't call you because you are impressive. He called you because He chose you. And if His choosing you isn't enough to make you feel worthy to be seen, then no amount of human validation ever will. And this is something that we will address in the Goal Accelerator Bootcamp. We will work on rewriting this mindset. You will learn to anchor your identity to what God says instead of what people think. Next, you have to start practicing imperfect obedience. And I mean that literally. You have to practice being visible before you are ready. Because the truth is that you will never feel ready. That feeling that you are waiting for, the one where you're finally confident, polished, impressive enough, it doesn't come before you start. It comes after you start. Confidence is built through action, not preparation. You have to start being willing to be seen in process, to be visible while you are still learning. So post the message even if it's not perfectly articulated. Launch that thing even if the website is not flawless. Offer the service even if you don't have 20 testimonials yet. Show up even when you feel like everyone can see that you are scared. Because the only way to break the cycle of needing validation is to stop waiting for it before you move. This is why at the bootcamp, we don't just talk about this, we do it. We practice taking imperfect action. No, and it's not because God doesn't care about excellence, but because He cares about obedience more than optics. Next, you need to redefine what success really looks like in God's economy. Because right now, you're probably measuring success by how people respond to you. Did they like it? Did they share it? Did they sign up? Did they validate that it was good enough? But kingdom success isn't measured by applause. It's measured by faithfulness. Did you do what He asked you to do? Did you steward what He gave you? Did you obey even when it cost you something? That's the standard. If God asked you to serve 5 people and you serve them well, then you're successful. Even if someone else is serving 50,000. God asked you to create something and you create it imperfectly, you're successful, even if it doesn't go viral. If God asked you to show up and you show up afraid but obedient, then you are successful, even if no one claps. So stop letting other people's assignments define your success. Stop allowing their highlight reels make you feel like you're failing. Your obedience is between you and God, period. Next, you need people around you who will call you higher, not confirm your excuses. If everyone in your circle is saying, yeah, you should probably wait until you have a little bit more experience, or they're saying you're right, you're not ready yet, you don't have a support system, you have an echo chamber. You need people who will lovingly confront your fear. You need people who will say, that's fear talking, not wisdom. People who will remind you that God's calling doesn't wait for your comfort. People who will push you towards obedience even when you're terrified. This doesn't mean surrounding yourself with people who are reckless or dismissive of legitimate concerns. It means having people in your corner who can tell the difference between healthy caution and fear-based delay. And sometimes that person has to be you. You need to be able to recognize when you're hiding behind, I'm just trying to be wise, when you're really just being afraid of what people will think. Don't be afraid to start small. You don't have to launch the whole version this week, but you do need to take that small step. Post one piece of content. Have one conversation about that thing that you're building. Serve one person using the gift that God gave you. Do one thing in line with what God is calling you to do before you feel ready. Track your obedience, not validation. Keep a journal where you write down every time you obeyed, even if you felt terrified. Every time that you do the thing, even though you don't know how it will be received. And over time, you will build a testimony that says that your worth isn't determined by results. It's determined already in Christ. One thing that I would recommend is intentional self-reflection. Write down the specific thoughts that are keeping you stuck. What if they think I'm not qualified? What if no one cares? What if I look stupid? Then write down the truth next to each one. God qualifies the called. Obedience isn't measured by the response of the world. Faithfulness matters more than looking polished. Practice saying these truths out loud until they are louder than the voice of fear. Now, these are the exact kind of tools that we work through in the bootcamp, because information without application doesn't create change. Every day that you wait for external validation is another day that you are not stewarding what God has already entrusted to you. Every month that you spend preparing to feel ready enough is another month that people who you are called to serve are left waiting. Every year that you delay because you are afraid of being judged is another year of choosing other people's opinions over God's assignment. And I know that this might sound harsh, but it's true. Your calling isn't just about you. It's about the people who need what God has put in you. The single mom who needs the encouragement that you're afraid to share. The entrepreneur who needs the strategy that you are too insecure to teach. The believer who needs the message that you keep rehearsing but are too afraid to release. Your fear of looking imperfect is keeping them from receiving what God designed you to give. Is their breakthrough really worth less than your comfort? Now, this isn't a one-time fix. You're going to have days where you feel confident and clear, where obedience feels easy and you can't imagine ever doubting again. And you're going to have days where that old familiar voice creeps back in. Who do you think you are? You are not special. They are going to see right through you. The goal isn't ever to feel inadequate again. The goal is to obey even when you do. I'm sure Moses still felt inadequate at the Red Sea. David still had moments of fear at the cave. Paul still asked for prayer because his assignment was hard. But they moved anyways. They obeyed. They trusted that God was bigger than their fear of man. So be patient with yourself. You are learning years of seeking validation from the wrong source. You are learning to find your worth in God alone. Some days you'll post something and obsessively check the likes. Don't beat yourself up when you catch yourself doing that. Going forward, simply put systems in place that help you not to do that. So for example, in the past, God asked me to go off social media after I post something. That way I didn't have the opportunity to obsess over the analytics. Some days you'll want to quit because someone criticized you. That's normal. Just keep it moving. Some days you will compare yourself to someone else and feel like you're failing. Acknowledge it. Refocus. Remember, progress over perfection. Obedience over optics. Your calling isn't something that you earn because you are impressive. It's something that God gave you because He chose you. You are not called because you are qualified. You are qualified because you are called. Your worth isn't proven by results. It is established by whose image you bear. You don't need to be validated by people. You've already been validated by God. So say out loud, right now, I am called by God. His yes is enough. I don't need to look perfect to be obedient. My faithfulness matters more than other people's opinions. I am worthy because God says that I am. You're not saying all these things because you feel it. You're saying it because it's true. And the more that you declare God's truth over yourself, the less power other people's opinions will have. And if you're tired of letting the fear of what other people will think steal another year of your obedience, if you have a God-given goal that has been sitting in your heart because you're waiting to feel worthy enough to be seen, if you're ready to stop performing for validation and to start stewarding your calling faithfully, then join me in the 5-day Goal Acceleration Bootcamp. In 5 days, we're going to identify the real fear that has been keeping you stuck, and it's probably not what you think. Break down your God-given goal into steps that you can start taking immediately. Practice being visible before you are ready. Build an actionable 90-day plan based on faithful stewardship, not impressive performance. The link is in the description. God already called you. He already equipped you. He already said that you are enough. Now it's your turn to believe Him. So stop waiting for permission and start walking in obedience. And I'll see you in the bootcamp.